a 24-team college football playoff. What inspired this thought process, and what did you find as you were working on it?
Yeah, it's something that I've always been interested in. And I think I've covered Division II playoffs 20 years ago and saw it firsthand and how exciting it was. And then over the weekend, I was watching some of the FCS playoffs and some of the other divisions. And I thought, can you imagine what this would be like if there was a FBS 24-team playoff? And it just seems to be, pretty much double the field what we're going to get. But having it at home campuses in the middle of December, and what you would get first week, then second week, and some of these games. And I was really fascinated by how kind of the exercise played out, because what I tried to do was use the CFP selection committee standings, incorporate every champion, for the group of 5 and for the Power 5, and then try to isolate a little bit where you don't have teams from the same conference meeting until at least the regional finals. So a little bit of NCAA basketball tournament, or at least the way it used to be. So when I kind of went through this, I think it ended up about the way I thought it would, which was you've got some interesting first round matchups, because you're going to have those group of 5 teams and some of the middle to lower level playoff contenders. But then when you reach the second round, it's going to be the best weekend we've ever seen in college sports history. It'll make the NCAA tournament's first round look like, just a shrug. It's unbelievable when you start to get into that, matchups like, Ole Miss at Ohio State, or Mizzou at Oregon. But then also you get a little bit deeper and you get, Oklahoma at Florida State. You get Notre Dame at Alabama. And then it goes from there. And those would be on home campuses.
This is a kind of a difficult thing if you're listening to it to visualize. So in this bracket, just so you can try to follow me here, there are 4 different regions. In those 4 regions, there are 6 teams. 6 times 4 equals 24. I did really well in high school math. And then there are 2 bye teams in each region. So here's the first region, and I know it's tough, but try to visualize it. The byes would be 1 and 2, Michigan and Oregon. Then you would have Oregon State at LSU. And I love that we have TV time here, 8 p.m. on ESPN ABC. Then you would have SMU at Mizzou. That would be Region 1. And then, of course, the winners of those games would go on to play Michigan or Oregon. In that region, guys, do you think – and let me just say this before we continue to go on. I saw a stat on Twitter. I don't know if you guys saw this, but the FCS playoffs had a really fun game on Friday night. Apparently, awesome. A lot of people were watching
Saturday night, Ari.
It was Saturday night.
Those of us who appreciate the non-Ohio State, non-Alabama, basically non-Group A enthusiasts appreciated the Montana, North Dakota State insanity.
But I read a stat, though, that was funny, that the only teams that have won the national championship, except for 1 year in the entire history of this bracket, was a 1 or a 2 seed. Like, there are no Cinderellas in FCF football. Like, you don't have like a 9 seed winning the national championship. And I think
that's in there though. Albany.
I don't know. I don't know where I read it. I wish I would have remembered where I read it. But apparently, there's been like very little parity in the later rounds, and like the best teams in the country. And Scott, you said you covered it. Maybe you have some insight on this.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was one of the examples I used to where there can be a Cinderella story, and that was in 2005. So 18 years ago, man, I'm getting old. I was living in Northwest Missouri, and I was along with our beat writer covering Northwest Missouri State's run. They were the last seed to get in the tournament. Now they are a powerhouse program and lost a couple of games that year, but they were playing Grand Valley State from Michigan, where Brian Kelly had just left a couple of years before it, and Chuck Martin was the coach, who's at Miami of Ohio. And they were the last team to get in, and Grand Valley State was the first team to get in, and they made it all the way to the championship finals. And it came down to the very end where a guy dropped a touchdown pass, and ultimately Grand Valley State won. So there is an opportunity for that. But I think what we'd also look at is the Cinderella stories are going to be comparable to what we see in the NCAA tournament, which is let's take in region. Okay, we'll stick with region 1 since you put that up there. SMU going to Mizzou and winning. I don't think that's not out of character. That's something that's plausible. But then SMU going to Michigan the next week is something you're going, no, that's not going to happen. But if it does, or a Troy goes to Washington, or something to that effect. In fact, I tried to institute in each round that I showed here was some sort of not crazy upset, but an upset that, okay, because every week there's going to be somebody who's a 5 beats a 4 or something like that. So I think I had Arizona upsetting Texas in the second round in Region 3. So, but to suggest that any of these teams are going to win it all, I think is unrealistic, just like it is now, just like it would be with anybody beating, like the Group of 5 champion going and winning and beating Alabama, Ohio State, and Ole Miss in 3 straight games or something like that is probably unrealistic in the current environment, whether you're talking about 4 teams like Cincinnati making it a few years ago or 12 teams, which is what we'll have next year.
Well, this is fun to look at because I see it, and having life to Mizzou and LSU are some of the stuff that we're going to get next year in the 12-team playoff. Teams that I think are very good, who if they get hot at the right time could do something. Catherine here, who's an LSU fan, put into the chat, the point of Cinderellas isn't for them to win it all. It's to see how far they can ride the wave. People didn't need St. Pete's to win it all for their run to matter. That's true. I think, in fact, they probably wanted them to lose when they got to a certain point. Because at the end of the day, people want the best teams to play. I think that it's cute in the beginning, and the further they get, the more people aren't rooting for them anymore because, at the end of the road, you want to see the Titans play the Titans. But
and for whatever it's
is
worth,
there anybody in the first region that you think could win?
In the first region, I'm not buying it.
I just want to see if we can get through the 4 regions and see if there's any possibility that a team that isn't a 1 or a 2 seed wins. And I'm already going to push back a little bit. Like, I guess it's within the possibility that LSU could come out of that region if they figured out, their defense a little bit, got healthier. The Heisman Trophy winner is on their team. They're probably athletically able to stack up with the 1 and 2 seeds. They're probably more talented than the 1 and 2.
Well, I mean, I'd be in the NBA if I was 6'4", these are all big ifs, right?
No, I know, but I'm saying, like, if LSU won that region, it wouldn't be like St. Pete's getting to the Final Four.
No,
I think correct. I mean,
Liberty sneaking out of Region 2 would be, and that's not.
Well, let's do the regions real quick then, so people don't get confused. Region 2, top seed is Washington. Number 2 is Ohio State. Both of those teams get byes. 5 is Liberty playing on the road at Louisville. 6 is Troy at Ole Miss. Let's do Region 3 now. Region 3 is Texas as the number 1 seed, Georgia as the number 2, both of whom getting byes. 5, NC State at number 4, Arizona. Number 6, Miami of Ohio at number 3, Penn State. And then Region 4 would be bye weeks for Alabama, Florida State. Then the first round games in that region would be Iowa on the road at Notre Dame, which shoot that game into the sun. And then 6, Boise at number 3, Oklahoma. And all these games can either be found on NBC or Fox or CBS because, damn it, if we talk about the expanded playoff without bringing up a television contract.
Got to.
So I look at these regions here, and it's like, okay, Oklahoma could win Region 4 maybe, right? Like Region 3.
Yeah, Oklahoma, for me, the ones that, like, okay, so if we're talking crazy, I'll give you LSU just as a theoretical exercise. LSU, I'll say Liberty, and I will say Arizona, and I'll say Oklahoma would jump out to me as the 4 that, like, I could see it.
You could see Liberty beating Washington or Ohio State?
And it's plausible. It's not the craziest thing in the world.
Scott, do you have any?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably say if there's, I'd probably only put 2 or 3 that have a chance to even win their region, let alone go past their region. And I think LSU makes sense because LSU has incredible athletes, has the best player in the country. So it gets hot. It's a close game. They can do things that a team like Iowa, for instance, couldn't. Iowa plays great defense, doesn't do anything on offense. So it would struggle in those types of situations. I think Oklahoma would be possible, but not as likely. I think Penn State would have some potential because they did play two outstanding teams and lost. And Arizona might be the other one. I kind of like the way Arizona finished the season. But
I'd like to see Arizona,
but the rest of them. But again, this is kind of what the NCAA tournament brings.
See, here's the thing that is crazy.
Arizona playing Texas.
That would be fun. I look at this and I think this would be freaking awesome because you have these little mini pods and you've got 6 teams in these mini pods, and then whoever wins their mini pod gets to the Final Four. You guys know how brackets work. I don't know why I had to explain it. I feel like this could not and cannot happen. It would be awful if it happened, right? Am I nuts?
I wouldn't love it. I mean, all right, I'm an 18 playoff guy. I don't love the 12. I think the 12 is better than the 4, but if it were up to me, I'd go 8. If you do this, then I think we're having a fair conversation about what the regular season is.
Yeah, and this is all hypothetical. We don't have to go down that road, but it's just I'm trying to think of in a world where we got this, what would we pay for it? I think it's an interesting thought process, which brings us to the next discussion point here. And I think there's a lot of games that we'd be excited about. Is there an individual matchup before we move on that you guys would see in this hypothetical bracket and be like, God, I think that Arizona, Texas would be the number 1 game I would have. And it's because I'm a homer.
Well, I feel like I'd like to see, if we could find a way to get Washington and Texas to play each other and then Michigan and Alabama to play each other. I don't know if we could find a way to do that, but I feel like if that could happen, I'd love to see those games. I know this is a theoretical exercise, but just imagine
you would just love to see the games that the 4-team field gave us. Yeah, I agree with you. Hey, Scott, my favorite thing about your thing here is that Region 3's bye week is Georgia, and Region 4 is Alabama's got a bye week, and we would just get to see that game again. It doesn't matter how many teams you expand, the route to what we already have is the finish line to these sort of things. But is there a game in there, Scott, that you would be like, okay, this give me more of this? Okay, so Iowa beats it'd be Iowa, Florida State, maybe?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. I think it'd be Iowa, Alabama, and then the dream would be over. But I think the what I would have it is 1 versus 4 and 2 versus 3, kind of bracketed that way. I guess Notre Dame and Alabama. I mean, here's the thing: you start looking at these games on campus. Notre Dame and Alabama, sign me up just because of the helmets, if nothing else. Oklahoma at Florida State, sign me up because of the helmets. Penn State at Georgia. Ole Miss playing in Ohio State. What if it's snowing in Ohio State and Ole Miss has to go there? I mean, Louisvile and Washington, that, you got Jeff Brom and the way he likes to play against Michael Penix, who he used to play. And then of course, LSU at Michigan. I mean, you've got, those are the matchups that I think people go, wow, okay, sign me up. I definitely want to see that. And I think, and the other part of it is keeping it on campus. This is what I think everybody's going to recognize next year is that the teams that receive buys will look and go, how in the hell did those guys get home games? If you're looking right now and you're saying Georgia and Florida State, they're playing at home in that first round. And why don't we get to do that? We earned it all year. And then you're going to start talking about fans trying to travel. I mean, you're going to travel to 3 destination locations if your team's going to win the national title. I mean, you're talking about maybe your first round, if you're the 4th seed, you might be playing in New Orleans, and then you might be playing in Miami, and then you might be playing in Arlington or LA at SoFi Stadium. I mean, you're asking your fans to travel a lot and spend a ton of money. And I don't know that that's going to be feasible. So my guess is within even 2 years, by the time the 2026 season rolls around, you're going to see some of those schools that have had buys saying, why can't we get at least 1 game on campus?